Chapter 281 The Strongest Being. Soon, a few months had passed. Eternal Voyager scoured the Purgatory layer, searching for Abyss Source. In these few months, Eternal Voyager found thousands of Tier 4 and 5 Abyss Source. There were also hundreds of Tier 6 Abyss Sources. However, for Tier 7, they still had yet to find any. It seems that even in the Purgatory layer, there is not much Abyss Source. All in all, these Abyss Sources added about 10 billion daily system points, which is simply not enough. Fortunately, as the stronghold reached the Source layer, the Abyss Source became more abundant. As for the rare materials they came across, they were violently looted. With 10 million beings under his command, a resource load can be excavated in an instant. Conservation was unnecessary, the resource load was directly dug to the roots. Such a violent approach prevented the resource node from regenerating. Maximus didn't care about this, although it was a waste, he didn't have time for conservation. Such practice was normal on this kind of land where you would not know if you would still be alive the next day. Only the resources near an outpost can be mined with conservation in mind. After all, the continuous flow of resources is much more profitable and safe. In the boundary of the Source layer, a disheveled man with a bare upper body was resting as he drank some wine. Gulp.
TSK, this wine really hits the spot.
The man, Malgren, muttered. I should steal more from that flying fortress this time. The Eternal Ruin outpost, traveling from the boundary of the Source layer, was Malgren's target. In the past epoch, his daily supplies, like food, drink, and clothes, were stolen from these strongholds. However, Malgren didn't dare to meet them personally to avoid putting them in danger. Once the Abyss Monarchs had known that Malgren had a connection to this stronghold, such a perfect resource point would be destroyed. Where would he get his supplies then? In the past, when he attempted to meet with his old buddies, they nearly died coming back. They would probably have perished if not for his forceful maneuver and the will of the Ethereum Realm World's will. As for going to lower layers where the Abyss Monarch dared not venture, Malgren couldn't go there either. With the complete control of the Monarch over the Abyss Realm, they could forcibly destroy that part of the Abyss and exile him from it. Although it would significantly damage the Abyss Realm, given the Monarch's hatred for him, it was highly possible. Once outside that void, although Malgren can forcibly survive, he can't find his way to return. Without the strength of Tier 10, traveling in the void can only be achieved by a Tier 10 ship or some other means. While he couldn't do anything to the four Monarchs together, they couldn't do anything to him either. Malgren was still as free as a bird, fighting when he wanted and resting when he wanted. Over countless epochs, Malgren didn't know how many Abyss monsters he had killed, but it certainly weakened the Abyss Realm a little. Otherwise, how could the fragile creatures of the Ethereum Realm stay and even thrive in the Abyss? If not for the short time, Malgren was even confident enough to destroy the Abyss himself. Unfortunately, his home dimension would be devoured sooner or later if he didn't do anything. By then, even with an ultimate physique, he would perish like a tree ripped from its roots. Malgren could only whittle the patience of the Abyss Monarch, hoping to separate them even for a short time. With his over-the-limit Tier 9 strength, killing an Abyss Monarch should not take long. Deciding to celebrate his victory, he spread his spiritual consciousness to find the Eternal Ruin stronghold. Millions of light-years of spiritual consciousness began to spread within the Abyss. Such an insane range was normal for him as he neared Tier 10. If not for the suppression of the Abyss, he could even scan the whole Abyss like his own little house. Another stronghold? Malgren muttered in puzzlement. A few million light-years away was another mobile stronghold. It's not that he had not seen other mobile strongholds braving the Purgatory layer. It's because the stronghold gave him a weird feeling. If it were not for the familiar aura that was emitted by the beings of the Ethereum Realm, Malgren would ignore this stronghold like an inconspicuous rock. It seemed that the Abyss couldn't detect the stronghold? Malgren muttered in amazement. Malgren saw that the little eyes of the Abyss passed around the stronghold like it was an air. Interesting. In Shadowhunter's stronghold. Malgren teleported quietly into the stronghold.
Aha, it seems I found a new spot.
Malgren thought excitedly. He noticed the law of casually connected to him, and the Abyss seemed to be cut off or rather dimmed. In the past, when he interacted with the being of the Ethereum Realm, the law of casually tracking him seemed to magnify and cause a chain reaction. With such huge fluctuation, the little eyes of the Abyss can easily find him. Now, even after openly showing his body, nothing happened. It seemed the Abyss can't really see this place? Malgren thought excitedly. Doesn't that mean he is free to wander around here like normal?
Ah ha ha ha, such an interesting place.
Malgrin laughed out loud, startling the beings around.
You are?
Kelvin asked, seeing a newcomer who suddenly appeared in the stronghold. After joining the guild, Kelvin succumbed to the reality of life. Getting his salary and borrowing money, Kelvin advanced to Tier 8. Such a leap in strength changed his inherent impression of the guild. In the past, he loathed those repeated and mind-numbing tasks. Now, he just felt money raining, waiting for him to pick up. Furthermore, besides occasional maintenance, they no longer need to work on repetitive tasks. They only needed to fight or mine resources load, which is much more enjoyable. Seeing a barbaric man who seemed just out of a wasteland, Kelvin couldn't help but ask. He had heard stories that some abyss monsters could disguise themselves and secretly infiltrate various outposts, so he was quite vigilant. However, remembering that not even one abyss monster had attacked them this past decade, he relaxed a little.
Go, a little one could talk to me?
Malgrin wondered in surprise. Although he held his murderous aura to the limit, it's not something a normal Tier 8 can withstand, and talk to him like nothing. With a quick scan, he noticed that the elemental law of metal that the man before him mastered seemed to be merged with all the laws of the Ethereum realm.
A genius,
Malgrin concluded. However, after he scanned the others, the results were the same.
How in the world are there millions of geniuses here?
Malgrin felt the amalgamation of complete elements permeating every individual in the outpost. This usually only happens when one has a complete cultivation manual or a heaven-defying understanding to forcibly create one. In the Ethereum realm, Malgrin was confident that there should not be a few thousand who had this ability. Yet here, millions were scattered like vegetables on the roadside. Did the Ethereum realm change this much while I was away? Malgrin wondered.
Mister?
Kelvin asks again, seeing the barbarian in front of him in a daze.
Gahem, I'm a friend of the owner here,
Malgrin lied without blinking an eye. Do you have any proof? Kelvin asked, not believing what he said. Such a stupid-looking barbarian shouldn't be a friend of the guild leader.
Is this enough?
Malgrin took out a Shadowcrest emblem. This is enough, Kelvin said respectfully, with his heart pounding in fear. Apologies for my misdemeanor. Fortunately, he didn't act recklessly and asked respectfully. It's not a problem. Malgrin waved his hand, not minding the little interrogation. As my apology, why don't I take you around? Kelvin suggested. This was equivalent to a gold pie falling into the sky. Kelvin just needed to make a good impression, and just a tap of his guild leader's finger would make him rich. Lead the way, Malgrin said gently as he waved his hand and cleaned himself. On the other side of the stronghold, Sam showed his new girlfriend around when he suddenly felt his family emblem disappear. What happened, dear? The woman asked coquettishly. My family emblem suddenly vanished? Sam said with a frown. Maybe you forgot it at your house, the woman reasoned.
Impossible.
Sam shook his head in denial. Then, should you tell your father about it? Ahem. Sam nodded seriously. Although missing the family emblem was not a problem. If it suddenly disappeared without his knowledge, then that's a problem. You wait here, I'll go to my father. Sam ruthlessly left the girl in the street and flew toward their family residence. Hey, what a ruthless man. The woman pouted, seeing Sam leave her alone. Although she had heard that this man was a scumbag through and through, she still wanted to try her luck and see if she could climb the ladder. Unfortunately, seeing that scumbag's careless attitude, it seemed that he didn't have any luck. Looking at the prosperous street in front of her and considering the abundant Ethereum coins given by Sam, she decided to forget it and let herself unwind for a while. Let's have some fun, let's see if that scumbag will give me more money later. Chapter 282 The Strongest Being 2. In the Shadowcrest residence, Maximus quietly meditated, remastering various knowledge as he tried to conceive the Tier 8 chapter origin. Suddenly, a knock on the door disturbed him. I come in. Dad. Sam greeted. What happened, tired of playing around? Maximus teased. This bastard son of his only knew how to fight and play the hearts of ladies. He hadn't even internalized the motto of the family and gave birth to an heir. Over the past decades, Maximus didn't know how many women were brought to this stronghold by his bastard son. Maximus even noticed that some of them were spies. Fortunately, Sam was super choosy. Basically, a girl could only last a few days to a month. A little. Sam unconsciously nodded, forgetting why he came. He was getting tired of women. It seemed that all of them were the same except for the skin. They were all after his money and handsome face, no one was after his humor and skills. Sometimes he was even jealous of his brothers who found their destiny early on.
How about I let you meet some daughters of some apex sovereign?
Maximus suggested. With his connection and current worth, it should be easy to find someone who can interest his son.
But no, that would not be without a challenge. How can I still be a man if I rely on my father?
Sam quickly shook his head.
Aren't you relying on me now?
Maximus was speechless. This son of his was really narcissistic. His handsomeness, skills, money, all he could show off was from him, his father. Now he dared to say that he didn't need to rely on him to be a man? Isn't that contradictory? That's different, as Sam still denied. Although he relied on his father for everything. For the girl that he would be with him for eternity, he still wanted to be the one to choose.
Affine. Anyway, why are you here?
At that, my family emblem suddenly disappeared.
Are you sure?
I'm sure. Hearing that, Maximus frowned. Expanding his domain, he noticed a different aura on Sam. Eternal Voyager, check to see if there is any anomaly in the stronghold. Eternal Voyager, right away host. Scanning. Anomalies found. None. Permission to use reserve energy for deep scan. A permission. Deep scanning. Anomalies found. An individual with unknown strength was currently on board the stronghold. Warning. 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 Fatal threat detected. Permission to use dimensional weapon. Warnings began to blare, making Maximus frown. Hold off first, show me the live feed of the anomaly. A little earlier. Kelvin began to take Malgren around the stronghold.
Mister, I still don't know your name?
Kelvin asked before proceeding.
Just call me Mag, Malgren thought and replied.
Mr. Mag, what would you like to see first? Of course, food. I'm starving. Then, let's go right away, Kelvin nodded and called a special transportation vehicle. Although he didn't know why a friend of the guild leader was hungry, Kelvin still did his thing. Arriving at the food section, Malgren smelled the tempting aroma. Where would you want to eat, Mr. Kelvin didn't finish speaking as he saw Mr. Mag arrive at the Shadowcrest home restaurant. As he watched Mr. Mag enter the restaurant, sweat began to form on his face.
Mr. Mag, wait.
Kelvin hurriedly chased.
What?
Malgren frowned, seeing someone stop him. That, Mr. Mag, I don't have any money to treat you to this place, Kelvin said truthfully. Although he wanted to please one of the guild leader's friends, he didn't want to go bankrupt. The restaurant in front of him is not something people like him can afford. He heard that the chef and the owner of this place were one of the guild leader's wives.
Just knowing this, how could the dishes inside be normal? What treat?
I can afford my own food. Malgren waved his hand in disinterest.
What a joke.
Is he short on money? In the countless epochs he had been fighting in the abyss. The crystal merits on him were enough to fill several small worlds. If not for worrying the abyss would reabsorb the crystal merits, he would even throw it like a worthless stone.
Then that's fine.
Kelvin nodded reluctantly. Thinking that as a friend of the guild leader, this man should not be short of money. Maybe even the food would be free. Going inside they were greeted with unpretentious luxury. It was too cozy, not like a normal restaurant. There were only a few tables for customers to sit through. Malgren and Kelvin quickly found a seat and waited to order. Soon a puppet had come to them. Hello, welcome to Shadowcrest Home Restaurant.
What would you like to eat?
The puppet greeted, taking out a menu. Give me one of everything from the menu, Malgren waved his hand, not looking at the menu.
What about you? What do you want?
My treat. Kelvin was already frozen, looking at the prices on the menu. Dragon mushroom caps. Price 100 million Ethereum coins. Minotaur medallions beef. Price 70 million Ethereum coins. Blink forest risotto. Price 50 million Ethereum coins. Elixir of immortality sorbet. Price 120 million Ethereum coins. Frost giant elixir wine. Price 150 million Ethereum coins. Just looking at it, Kelvin was already numb. He could only afford such food if he saved for decades.
Hurry up, I'm hungry, Malgrin urged with a frown. If not for wanting a company for the first time, he would already kill this brat for delaying him. Just give me the celestial dream cake, Kelvin finally muttered. It was already the cheapest he could find, costing 30 million Ethereum coins. Is that all? You're a small eater, Malgrin mocked. I have already eaten, Kelvin reasoned. Although it was a treat, he still had to eat what he could afford. Soon after, a few minutes later, the food arrived. Finally, the food is here, Malgrin licked his lips, seeing the puppet beginning to deliver the food. Looking at the high-tier food on his plate, Malgrin began devouring it. Mouthful after mouthful, food after food. It seems that Malgrin had a bottomless stomach. Kelvin could only silently savor the dessert in his hand as he looked at the monster in front of him. One had to know the food served in front of them was at least tier 8 food. The huge amount of energy contained in it made it impossible to quickly digest, yet the man before him ate it like it was nothing. Soon after a quarter hour of endless eating, Malgrin finally burped in satisfaction. Aha, what a treat, Malgrin muttered as he squinted his eyes. Excuse me, can you call the chef? I want to offer my appreciation. Malgrin yelled at the empty shop. Curious, Erica came out to see who had the bottomless stomach and ate her whole menu. Mister? It's you. What a pretty young lad, your food is too delicious and homely, Malgrin praised sincerely. Eating the food reminded him of the meals he had with his old buddies in their earlier years. Thank you, Erica smiled, seeing a customer satisfied. She had only set up this restaurant because she was bored. She didn't expect to meet this interesting customer. Do you need anything? No, I just want to express my appreciation, Malgrin shook his head. How much is the food we ate? 173 billion Ethereum coins, mister, Erica said after a quick calculation. Ethereum coins? Malgrin was puzzled for a while. Is it the new currency? It seems that the abyss is really changing day by day. Just a few hundred years ago, they still used crystal merits, and now it's Ethereum coins. It's indeed a new currency. You can just pay us 17.3 trillion crystal merits, Erica nodded and stated the price in crystal merits. Although she didn't know which cave this man popped up from, not knowing the trend of times, he was certainly not simple. Just eating all the courses on her menu was already not normal. Even a tier 9 apex sovereign would be bloated if he ate that much. However, looking at the man in front of him, it seems that the food barely satiated his stomach. Oh, here, keep the change, Malgrin nodded and threw out his smallest storage ring. Receiving the storage ring, Erica quickly took a look inside. What she saw were piles of crystal merits that nearly burst the storage ring. Just by estimate, it should be a few hundred trillion crystal merits. It's too much, Erica said, not accepting such a huge amount. She didn't want to owe some unknown man something. It's okay, just take it, it's too bothersome to count. But no, I insist, Erica still shook her head. Oh, then while you count, serve me another food dash. Before Malgrin finished speaking, a man suddenly appeared in front of him. And never mind, take out your strongest wine, I'd like to talk to this gentleman. Malgrin said with interest. No need, I have the wine here, Maximus said coldly. Chapter 283 Sextillion Crystal Merits. Come, sit. Malgrin invited. Taking out a wine he brewed, Maximus sat across the legendary Malgrin. A good wine. Malgrin praised, smelling the aroma. Maximus just nodded and looked at Kelvin. Malgrin's existence can't be known. At least, it can't be known that he had stayed in the Shadowhunter outpost. A guild leader, I remembered I still have something important to do. Kelvin, noticing the atmosphere in the room was not right, quickly excused himself. You should get on quickly. Seeing Kelvin leave, Maximus finally turned his attention to Malgrin. Pleased to meet you, the strongest one, Malgrin, Maximus greeted with respect. Although he was still a little angry seeing Malgrin flirt with his wife, he knew it was only his delusion. As the strongest being in the Ethereum realm, what is a mere woman to Malgrin? Maybe the food his wife made really satisfied this monster. Ha, it seems that the leader of this stronghold is quite unique, Malgrin said with interest. Since Malgrin came to the stronghold, he already noticed Maximus was different. Possessing an ultimate physique, of course, he can easily detect one. Although he was a little shocked at first, it didn't hinder his hunger, so he ate first. What Malgrin didn't expect was that Maximus would come right at him. I say, what brought a legendary being here? Maximus asked.
Based on the data he read through Tintin, the last sighting of Malgren was at least 1,000 epochs ago. That devastating encounter brought destruction to at least thousands of outposts near the area. If not for knowing that the Shadowhunter outpost is still hidden in the eyes of the abyss, Maximus would probably have blasted this bomb out of his place without a second thought. It's just your stronghold is quite a nice vacation spot, my little fans couldn't see me here. It seems that even you have concerns about the abyss. If not for the baggage, the Ethereum realm, I could finish the abyss myself. Malgren reasoned. Anyway, enough of that, open the wine. Malgren shifted the topic, salivating at the smell of wine. Maximus didn't ask more and poured wine for Malgren. Erica also arrived, bringing some snacks. Husband, here's the food. Thanks. Tisk, TSK, your wife is a really good cook, Malgren said with envy. Why don't you get one? Maximus asks in puzzlement. According to history, it seems that Malgren didn't have any women in interest. Even just a casual indulgence was not present. Of course, history may have been made up to glorify Malgren. They're too weak for my taste. I want some food or wine. I can just buy one. Malgren still hadn't met his destiny, or he may never met one. For him, women are just distractions that will hinder his advancement. Moreover, what is a woman for? Pleasure? Isn't fighting someone more pleasurable and blood-inducing? Sometimes he can't understand the need for this bedside bloodline inheritance. Maybe in the future he could create one when there is no one to fight him. Go. By the way, can you tell me something about the abyss? Since the legendary being is in front of him, how could he not ask? Bam. You should have already noticed the abyss is a ship. Yes. As a ship, it has captains, an abyss monarch, and there are 5 of them. Are they strong? Maximus asked, seeing the seriousness in Malgren's face. So far, he had already fought all kinds of abyss monsters, from cannon fodder to lord ones. Unfortunately, aside from the mutated and the higher-tier abyss monster, all the others were too weak for him to be a challenge. They're quite strong, all right. After all, 1 could fight him for a while, 2 could stall him, 3 could tie him, and 4 could defeat him. If it's not strong, then what is it? Anyway, they are the strongest beings that Malgren encountered. Soon, Malgren and Maximus drank as they talked about everything in the abyss. From the little things to the most secretive ones. Maximus just became an observer as he noticed Malgren seemed to be venting. After countless epochs of wandering and fighting alone, even the most battle-hardened creature would accumulate some stress. Although it did not affect Malgren, he still needed someone to vent it through. By the way, I noticed a few materials that are not from our dimension or this place, Malgren finally asked. It's from a trans-dimensional system, Maximus said truthfully. From a being of Malgren's caliber, a lie can easily be seen through. It's better to come clean than lie to this monster who can kill him at any time he wanted. Although Maximus can't feel any dominating aura now, it's like a slumbering beast waiting to erupt. Maximus didn't want to trigger it, so he was quite measured from the start. A trans-dimensional system? I hear. Maximus took out a copy of the Myriad World Mall and bound it to Malgren. Myriad World Mall system. Begin merging? Is this it? Malgren muttered, looking curiously at the bulge of incomprehensible laws. With curiosity, Malgren allowed it to merge with himself. Merging. Myriad World Mall activated. Soon, a rush of information about the Myriad World Mall began to pour into his mind. Malgren's breathing became heavy. This is amazing. Malgren was not excited by the mere exchange function of the trans-dimensional system. Malgren was excited about the meaning behind it. Dimensional organizations. Dimensional powerhouses. Too many strong opponents for him to fight. The world outside is more beautiful than I anticipated, Malgren said, wishing to rush out immediately and challenge the world outside. Indeed, the Ethereum realm is a mere speck of dust compared to the world out there. Isn't this more interesting? Malgren laughed loudly. Who wanted an easy challenge? He would rather die fighting than die out of boredom. To be honest, the Abyss realm, the challenge of the Abyss monarchs, was beginning to bore him. It was too easy with a lack of variety. Should we update this transdimensional system? Malgren asked. What he meant was exposing their dimensional coordinates and allowing the whole transdimensional platform to be complete. Like a mere messenger to the whole internet. But no, I plan to wait until the Ethereum realm reaches tier 10. Why is that? Isn't it more beneficial to have a complete transdimensional system? I have my reasons. Maximus insisted. He hadn't yet found a solution to hide the fact that the dimensional library was connected to him. Before proceeding, he was waiting until he thoroughly studied the transdimensional system or his family and power system. Since you're so frank, then I can wait. Malgrin didn't ask more and decided to trust Maximus. Thank you. Maximus clenched his fist. Giving a copy of the Myriad World Mall to Malgrin was a complete gamble. He couldn't stop it if something happened. However, with 99% certainty, according to what he knew about Malgrin, he decided to go all out. As for why go through all this trouble, he wanted to have Malgrin as a friend. It's not for emotion, reverence, or anything, it's simply for interest. Malgrin had all he needed now, whether it was Abyss Source or Crystal Merits, he had it all. After Malgrin calmed down, he quickly browsed the Myriad World Mall. From Tier 0 to Tier 10 items, he quickly shelved all the fighting knowledge that piqued his interest. As the bearer of the ultimate combat physique, he was hungry for some new battle insight. By the way, I owe you a favor, tell me what you want, Malgrin suddenly thought. Although he could play dumb and not acknowledge Maximus's favor. As the strongest being in the Ethereum realm, he still had some pride. I just wanted some money and, more importantly, some Abyss Source, Maximus said frankly. For the type of Malgrin, speaking straightforwardly is the best course of action. Money is easy, but why do you want an Abyss Source? You already have the ultimate physique, Malgrin said in puzzlement. Having an ultimate physique meant that his elemental affinity, understanding, perception, and such would also be at the ultimate level. As for upgrading weapons or whatsoever, with the Myriad World Mall, Maximus can just buy it. I have my reasons. Maximus didn't disclose the reason. Ayo, whatever. Here's the money. Malgrin lazily chose one of the small worlds in his possession and threw it at Maximus. Looking at the small world, Maximus quickly spread his consciousness inside. The small world was just an empty space, like his storage dimension, which didn't arouse his interest. However, piles after piles of crystal merits nearly blinded his eyes. After a rough count, there should be more or less a sextillion of Maximus's crystal merits in it. So much. Maximus muttered in shock. Ha, if you live fighting like me, this is only natural, Malgrin said proudly. This is nearly 100th his money, how can it be little? This is the blood and sweat of the Abyss realm that he squeezed for epics. If the Ethereum realm were to absorb his current worth, it could even advance a few %. Unfortunately, for the poor Ethereum realm, the one who had the money is him, a bearer of the ultimate physique. Isolating the influence of the worlds was a piece of cake. So from the beginning to the end, the Ethereum didn't get anything from him. Chapter 284 Tier 7, 99.99%. As for the Abyss Source, Malgrin took out a special ring filled with isolation runes and microarrays. Did you create this? Maximus asked in amazement. Abyss Source is highly sensitive to energy, so it is better to use it immediately or, in his case, isolate it. Besides his storage dimension, this was the first time Maximus had seen a storage space capable of isolating Abyss Source. I was too bored, Malgrin nonchalantly replied. Fighting wasn't the only thing he could do. After living for an extended period of time, he mastered a lot of knowledge in his free time. While he might not excel in mastery compared to others, Malgrin was confident that no one could beat him in terms of variety. Is that so? Maximus nodded in agreement. Even him, when he was bored, he could also create some wonderful things. Soon, Maximus put his consciousness inside the storage ring. Maximus cringed for a while as he sensed a dense abyss aura amalgamation inside. Different from the dazzling mountains of crystal merits. Inside the storage ring were like mountains of cockroaches flying everywhere. However, thinking that it would be his system treasure trove, the smile on his face widened. With just a rough scan, Maximus estimated that there should be at least 100 trillion worth of system points here. Of course, there is also high-quality Abyss Source whose value he didn't know, so it should be more. Maximus quickly put it in his storage dimension and looked at Malgrin. Thank you, he said sincerely. Don't bother, it's nothing, Malgrin waved his hands. Compared to the extraordinary glimpses of the outside world he just saw, mere monetary possessions were nothing. With the Myriad World Mall, Malgrin was even more confident that he could defeat the monarchs on his own. Just buying a few Tier 10 weapons, he could pummel those Abyss monarchs to the ground. Unfortunately, he wasn't that boring. Cheating and killing the fun didn't interest him. Malgrin would first study these new insights he bought and then test them on those monarchs, which would be more thrilling. Soon, Malgrin and Maximus continued drinking and talking, discussing the current state of the Ethereum realm to the present. They also talked about the consequences of the appearance of the transdimensional system. Although it seemed quite hidden, Malgrin told Maximus that the Abyss monarchs should have noticed its existence by now. By knowing the transdimensional system inside and out and acquiring knowledge about the Abyss, they concluded that the Abyss should change drastically soon. It's not just that the creatures of the Ethereum realm would come en masse into the Abyss because of more outposts. It's about the Abyss becoming more desperate. Before the reinforcement from an outside dimension arrives, the Abyss should want to swallow the Ethereum realm as quickly as possible. The estimate of about an epoch before the Abyss realm reaches the Ethereum realm would be shortened to only a few thousand years. Of course, there is another instance: the Abyss monarchs could quickly get reinforcements from their main dimension. In that case, they would have no choice but to quickly expose their dimension to get outside reinforcement. To this, Maximus only hoped that it would not happen. If it did, he could only delete his shop account in the Myriad World Mall before anyone traced it back to him. A few days later, in Maximus's residence, Maximus was meditating as he counted his harvest from Malgrin. First is the crystal merits, which are 992 quintillion 870 quadrillion 375 trillion 265 billion 538 million 120,000, nearly a sextillion. This solved almost all his money problems and more. Maximus only needed 100 quintillions to advance, while his family and in-laws only needed about 3 quintillions in total. In the end, he would still have 880 quintillion at his disposal. Such a massive amount of money left Maximus in a daze. Having money and not knowing where to spend it is such a trouble. Second, there is the Abyss source. Looking at the dense amalgamation of the Abyss aura, Maximus hurriedly let the system absorb it. 1.3 quadrillion. Maximus looked again, thinking that his eyes were blurry. However, after double-checking, it was still a quadrillion. How is this possible? In his estimate, there should only be a few hundred trillion worth of energy. Now, looking at the quadrillion system points in his panel, Maximus was in a daze for a while. Scouring his storage dimension, he saw a unique Abyss source among the pile. Monarch's Abyss source fragment, a part of Abyss source made from a complete Tier 9 world's origin. This dash. A Monarch Abyss source. Maximus didn't expect that Malgrin would give him even such a precious Abyss source. This is made from a Tier 9 world's origin, for God's sake. Even the Ethereum realm was only made from this. Although this Abyss source was only a fragment, it was still precious. If someone could offer this to the Ethereum realm's world will, the Ethereum realm would probably regard him as a divine son, the son of the world. Calming down, he thought about where to find the remaining fragments of the Monarch Abyss source. Since it's a Monarch Abyss source, the other fragment should be on another monarch, Maximus concluded excitedly. Unfortunately, I'm still too weak. If not for his weak strength, he would probably rush to the Abyss source layer now and fight the monarchs until only one of them was standing. This monarch's Abyss source fragment could give him quadrillion system points. Such a huge amount nearly blinded his eyes. This is different from money, which he can't immediately spend. System points are his life, no matter how many, it would not be too much. However, it seems that I can't recharge it with my energy. Maximus muttered in helplessness. There is only one way to recharge the Abyss source, and that is through energy. Whether it's kinetic energy, elemental energy, law energy, source energy, etc. Maximus mainly provided mana to recharge his Abyss source. With unlimited mana, Maximus never had to worry about the lack of energy. However, looking at the bottomless Monarch's Abyss source, a problem was presented to him. His mana seemed like a faucet trying to fill a sea. Although it's not that exaggerated. Maximus estimated it would take him over 3 years to fill this Monarch Abyss source. His hope of squandering system points was dashed before it even began. According to his current tier, he can only produce 10 million worth of energy every second. He can only recharge a single Abyss source at a maximum of 864 billion daily. This means even those Tier 8 Abyss sources worth trillions couldn't be fully charged within a day. Wait, it seems that I could still strengthen myself. Maximus suddenly noticed a blind spot. Maximus hurriedly opened his system panel. Maximus Shadow Crest. Tier 7, 0.00416%. Mana compatibility, rank 9 dimensional source ultimate. Soul amplitude, 1,100%. Soul will, 1,100%. Domain mastery, 99%. It seems that I can still strengthen myself. Since Maximus advanced to tier 7, he hardly trained. First, it was so inefficient and boring. Second, why bother with meditation when he could just absorb crystal merits to advance? However, Maximus had come to inertial thinking that he needed to collect 100 quintillion crystals and complete the tier 8 chapter Origin before he could advance. Maximus didn't think of upgrading his strength first and then advancing later. All this time, Maximus was fighting as an early tier 7 powerhouse. If not for insufficient energy, he would not even think about this. After all this time, there was no problem with his strength, or he never needed to use all his strength at all. Even in his fight with the Shadow God, Maximus used the power of items instead of his strength. It seems that I was stupid and arrogant. Maximus mocked himself a little. Thinking about it, he hurriedly took mountains of crystal merits and began advancing. A few months later. Maximus exhaled, opening his eyes. Maximus Shadowcrest. Tier 7, 99.99%. Mana compatibility, rank 9 dimensional source ultimate. Soul amplitude, 1,100%. Soul will, 1,100%. Domain mastery, 99%. A close? Maximus shook his head. It seems that I really need the tier 8 chapter of Origin to advance. Maximus felt his power explode after absorbing about 100 quintillion crystal merits for a few months. 10 times more power. Maximus clenched his fist, making the void around him crack. I don't know if my mana generation is also 10 times. Without further ado, he took out the Monarch crystal and poured his mana. After a while, Maximus concluded that his mana generation was indeed 10 times greater. Now, he can generate about 8 trillion mana daily, capable of fully recharging those tier 8 abyss sources. As for the Monarch abyss source, it would still take him over 4 months. And now that I have enough system points, it's time to advance Origin. Chapter 285 Domain Singularity. 3 years later. Shadowhunter Outpost, in a secluded room. Maximus slowly opened his eyes and breathed out. So powerful. Maximus murmured. 3 years of seclusion. Over 10 quadrillion system points. He finally created Chapter 8 of Origin. I didn't expect it took me this long. It took him over 100 years just to upgrade Origin from tier 7 to tier 8. Maximus could only guess how long it would take to upgrade it to tier 9. And now I can advance. According to the tier 8 chapter of Origin, he was only lacking 2 things before advancing. First is his elemental affinity, it needed to be at least rank 8. Second is his domain, it needed to be fully condensed. For elemental affinity, Maximus opened his system panel and took a look. Life points, 12 trillion. Potential points, 153 billion. Unassigned points, 1.6 quadrillion. 11-15 natural elements, rank 8, 2 trillion/1 quadrillion. 3 supreme elements, rank 7, 0/1 quadrillion. Barely enough. Maximus thought he still needed to accumulate points. Fortunately, the system points he had left were enough. 1 quadrillion. 3 supreme elements, rank 8, 0/100 quadrillion. Upgrading his supreme element affinity, Maximus suddenly felt a rush of elemental energy. Chaos, destruction, and fate. Various epiphanies about the supreme element began to emerge in his mind. A few days later. Maximus fully digested the surge of epiphanies. And now, just the domain. Origin gave him the ultimate domain that can peer and copy the origin of things. Now it's up to him to conceive an ultimate domain on his own. Usually, one only needed to merge one's physique with the origin domain. Like Sky merging her immortality physique so she can become immortal in her domain. However, for his path, Maximus would not only merge his special physique but all the copied special physiques and domains. Although it would be harder that way, it would undoubtedly be stronger. This should be easy. Before, he had already begun to merge his domain. However, because of various things, he stopped. Let's start. Maximus cheered himself. Maximus had already informed his family and guild about his seclusion. According to his estimate, it would take him 10 to 100 years to advance to tier 8. As for selling Tier 8 knowledge in the Dimensional Library in the Myriad World Mall, Maximus didn't bother. What's important right now is strength. Furthermore, he still had over 800 quintillions, there was no hurry to make money. Soon, Maximus began to complete his domain. With his special physique as a foundation, various copied physiques and domains began to merge. Maximus thought that it would be hard. Unexpectedly, the dimensional source was like a primer. It took all the copied physiques and domains like a sponge. Days and months began to pass by as billions and trillions of system points were thrown away like nothing. The state of his domain also became purer and purer. From scattered and unorganized power structures, his domain began to concentrate at a single point. A year later. In the secluded room, cracks began to appear in various places. Even under the support of the Tier 10 array, the room seemed like a fragile piece of paper. The main culprit for this is the tiny dot invisible to the naked eye. With a size smaller than an atom, its pulse wave nearly reached the intensity of a Tier 10 attack. Thud. 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 Maximus, who was in the middle of the room, was oblivious to all the chaos. His mind was concentrated on compressing his domain with all that he had. All the mana that his body could muster. All the system points that he could absorb. All the treasure in his possession. Maximus even used the crystal merits that he was not willing to spend. 100 trillion. 200 trillion. 400 trillion. 600 trillion. 700 trillion. Boom. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, his domain reached singularity and began to transform. An explosion invisible to the naked eye caused a stir in the chaotic abyss. In Ethereum Sanctuary, various apex sovereigns suddenly felt a chill pass by them. Raksha quickly gathered all the powerhouses in the sanctuary to discuss what happened. What do you think happened? Rakasha started. It should be a change in the abyss, one of them concluded. All these years, it seemed that the abyss had been mute towards what they were doing. Outpost after outpost was being built without much hindrance. Most of them concluded that it should be that the abyss is accumulating power. Now it seems that their guess is right. No. This should be a sign of someone advancing to Tier 9, a powerhouse sensitive to energy said. But why is the intensity so weak? They couldn't help but ask doubtfully. It should be hidden by an array or something, one of them, who was also sensitive to energy, confirmed.
Is that so?
And no matter how weak an energy is, it would always be reminiscent of Ethereum realm energy, so it certainly isn't the abyss. Seeing that many experts confirmed it was not the abyss, they sighed in relief. However, thinking that another apex sovereign appeared before them, they couldn't help but feel complicated. Just a few thousand years ago, an apex sovereign was born, now there is another. It seems that the era where the likes of us would be like dogs and cats is near. I wonder who it is this time? They thought in wonder. In Shadowhunter Outpost. In the Battle Axe Bar, opened by Malgrin. While the others were oblivious, still busy drinking on their own. Malgrin, who was originally drinking, woke up electrified as he looked at the center of the stronghold. I didn't expect that you'd reach this far. Malgrin muttered in amazement. Maximus's breakthrough, or what it seemed like, was stronger than anything he had ever felt. Even his enlightenment, creating and mastering the ultimate combat technique, paled in comparison. Maybe the advancement of his special physique to Tier 10 was barely comparable to this. This is worth a celebration. Malgrin reasoned as he took out a Tier 10 wine that he was initially reluctant to drink. Cheers to you, Maximus. In the depths of the abyss? The four monarchs of the abyss trembled, sensing a terrifying pulse. Looking at each other, an insane thought simultaneously appeared in their minds. A bearer of an ultimate physique. Damn, another one. The wave of pulse they felt was completely different from that of the vermin. Even if they were killed, they wouldn't dare to mix the two. Meaning there were at least two bearers of ultimate physique in their ship. What a stroke of luck. Is there no end to this? What's the use of fighting? We can just lie down and wait to die. Just one vermin, and we are already on the verge of death, now there is another one. Did the darkness of abyss abandon us? Drekther, Zalther, and Valdrekth nearly cried at the impermanence of the world. However, weirdly, Nixilos, instead of panicking, smiled widely as if he won the jackpot. What's wrong, brother? Did you become crazy? They asked, noticing Nixilos's weirdness. Idiots! Nixilos couldn't help but complain. What do you think would happen to us when there are two bearers of ultimate physique?
Adi?
Drekthar murmured. Truly an idiot. Could it be that we beg so we can become their subordinates? Zalthar guessed.
Another idiot.
Brother, stop talking in circles, tell us quickly, Valdrekth asked, not trying to guess. TSK, now let me change my question. What would happen if two gold mines were found in your house? Suddenly, a click seemed to sound in their minds. If a gold mine was found under your house, it would not cause much commotion.
However, if there are two,
the government would come knocking with guns and cannons regardless of all the obstacles. The gold mine did not arouse much interest, but what's hidden under it? A Tier 9 dimension giving birth to at least two ultimate physiques. What kind of dimensional joke is this? Originally, a Tier 9 dimension can only give birth to one or two-dimensional physiques. Yet now you tell me that there are two ultimate physiques in it? Brother. The main abyss? Drekthar hurriedly muttered, hoping to get credit. That's right, it seems that your head is beginning to work. Initially, even after knowing that there is a bearer of ultimate physique here, the main abyss dimension is reluctant to give support. Knowing that a sighting of the transdimensional system was found here, the main abyss domain was prepared to abandon us. Nixilos sighed in sadness. In the past, after knowing this, Nixilos was in despair. Although he didn't show it to his stupid brothers, Nixilos was in tatters, carefully treading, hoping to come out alive. He didn't even dare to agitate the beings of the Ethereum realm for fear of scaring them to call for reinforcement. Step by step, Nixilos held his breath, waiting for a chance. Now, it seems that the darkness of Abyss was still on his side. Ahihi, just wait for us.